Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to today's Friday Reflections on this, the 3rd of October 2025. Day after a tragic disaster in Manchester. Tragically, two Jewish people were murdered, others were injured, a synagogue came under attack. That's not the focus of what I'm going to be discussing today, but it is absolutely traumatic and horrifying to witness such things in this country. No one of any of our faith communities in the UK, no place of worship should come under attack like that. And we know that anti-Semitism has been rising over the past few years. It's not the only form of hate to be rising either. Anti-Muslim hate has been rising, anti-Hindu hate. And these forms of bigotry need to be tackled. Tomorrow it could be a mosque or a Hindu temple or a Gurdwara. And indeed, this isn't the first attack on a place of worship. Places of worship are sacred. And, actually within Islam, it's absolutely forbidden by the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, and also by the righteous caliphs and those that came after them to attack any place of worship of any religion or anyone who's praying. Really, Allah help us. Allah help us. And let's come together as a society to resolve the issues that result in these things and to ensure that our places of worship are secure and safe. But really, it's tragic that even places of worship need to have the levels of security that they have, especially synagogues. If anyone's been to a synagogue and seen the security that British synagogues have to have, it's not, as we saw yesterday, it's not for no reason. And really, they shouldn't have to be in a situation where they need to have that much security at the place of worship. Really, it's tragic and it's sad, and we need to do something together as a society to ensure that things like this do not happen in this country. They're totally unacceptable in whichever way you think about it. And it's traumatic to think that people who simply went to pray were attacked simply for being who they were. And we've had similar within the Muslim community as well. And I know many Muslims also have spoken out about this. Because, I mean, where I live here, I'm not so far away, was a mosque was actually bombed some years ago. Just for being a mosque, just for being there. And there was someone in Birmingham who was murdered just for walking to a mosque a couple of years ago. No one should be in that situation in this country. Clearly, there's a breakdown, and people have been warning about this, including myself, for several years. And if we don't tackle that, if we don't tackle hate and the causes of hate, if we don't come together as a community, then we're only going to be living in a very fearful society for all of us. That's not good for anyone. That'll help us overcome these things. I will continue with my study of Surah al-Kahf, life and leadership lessons. And it's interesting because where we left off last time and where we start today on page 70 of the book, Bridging Hearts, literally that's the title, Bridging Hearts. The story of the companions of the cave, Ashab al-Kahf. And who were the companions of the cave? Again, persecuted for their religious beliefs, just for being who they were. We read this story every Friday, Surah al-Kahf. about the companions of the cave who had to seek sanctuary in a cave. Why? Because they were being persecuted by a corrupt regime that hated anyone who was Christian at the time. Don't we learn these lessons? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The story of the companions of the cave, Ashab al-Kahf, serves as a powerful symbol for interfaith dialogue and harmony, particularly because it is deeply rooted in both Islamic and Christian traditions. In Christian teachings, it is often referred to as the story of the seven sleepers of Ephesus, while in the Quran, it highlights themes of faith, perseverance, and divine protection. This shared narrative offers a rich foundation for fostering mutual understanding and collaboration amongst faith communities, which is how it should be. Promoting interfaith dialogue and harmony. Shared spiritual heritage. This story illustrates that the pursuit of faith, truth, and divine protection is universal. By acknowledging this shared narrative, interfaith leaders can promote a sense of spiritual kinship, emphasizing common values over differences. Highlighting the story's presence in both the Quran and Christian tradition opens a pathway for mutual respect and curiosity. And indeed, there's so many examples of this between the Abrahamic traditions, because we come from a common root. We all believe in the same God and the same prophets and patriarchs in the Bible. The only difference is Christians believe about Jesus slightly different from what Jews believe. And Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was another prophet who came. But the actual teachings of each of these teachers and so many of the stories and accounts that we share are the same or nearly the same. There's a huge amount in common between all of us within the Abrahamic faiths. Unity in adversity. My brothers and sisters, is this not what we're facing? Unity in adversity. We need to have unity when we face problems, when we face fitna. The companions of the cave were united in their devotion to one God and sought refuge from oppression. This theme resonates across all major faiths, teaching that standing together in the face of adversity transcends religious boundaries. Leaders can draw on this story to inspire solidarity and collective action in addressing global challenges such as persecution, poverty, and social injustice, or acts of terrorism like we saw yesterday. Loyalty and companionship. The inclusion of the dog in the story symbolizes loyalty and inclusiveness. It teaches that true companionship is rooted in shared values and purpose, rather than in superficial differences. Interfaith leaders can draw a parallel in how different faith communities can coexist harmoniously when united by common goals such as peace and service to humanity. Respect for diversity. The Quran's presentation of the story honors theological diversity by intentionally omitting details such as the exact number of youths and instead emphasizing the core message. This approach teaches the importance of focusing on shared principles rather than divisive specifics. Exactly what I've been talking about for a very long time. The shared principles that we find within the Bible, within the Quran, in fact, within most religious texts. These shared principles unite us all. If we focus on what our religions actually teach, rather than focusing on the differences between groups, if we focus on the differences, we'll start attacking even people of our own religion because they come from a slightly different mosque or a slightly different sect or denomination. They understand something different to us. Well, my brothers and sisters, grow up. We all understand something a little different from someone else. Even if we go to the same mosque, even if we live within the same community, even if we come from the same background. That is to be human. There is actually a Jewish story that they tell that, you know, if you get like 10 Jews in a room, you'll have 11 opinions. This is to be human. If you have no original thoughts of your own and no opinions, no understanding that is different from other people, then what have you learned in your life? What is going on in your mind and in your heart? Learning is part of life. Learning will mean that some people will have different ideas to other people. If Einstein had exactly the same ideas as everyone else and refused to differ from what they were saying, we would never have had his body of work, which has led to so many technologies and discoveries that we routinely use to this day. Similarly, with anyone, whether you talk about Nikola Tesla or whether you talk about Stephen Hawking or any of these great people, even the Prophet Muhammad himself, if he'd have not stood up when people in his community were burying girls alive and said, this is wrong. You cannot bury infant girls. Girls and boys are equal. If the Prophet hadn't said such things, these evil practices could be with us to this day. So we need to respect differences. We need to think for ourselves and do that without conflict. We can discuss without hating. Faith and refuge in the divine. The story emphasizes that reliance on God is crucial for enduring challenges. This universal message can serve as a reminder to interfaith leaders that their collective goal is to guide humanity towards moral and spiritual growth, irrespective of their theological differences. My brothers and sisters, we are all on a journey. Even if all the people in a room were Muslims, each one of them is walking a slightly different path. We have to respect that. As soon as you look at people from other backgrounds, of course, their path is going to be a bit different. But it doesn't mean that they are not also working towards moral and spiritual growth. To be honest, I think any sincere person of faith, whichever religion they follow, is working towards moral and spiritual growth because that is what all of our faiths teach. Show me one religion where they are not encouraging moral and spiritual growth. All of them do. Lessons for interfaith leaders. 1. Empathy and inclusiveness. The story's narrative urges leaders to embrace those who seek refuge in their faith communities, just as the cave sheltered the companions. They should cultivate spaces where individuals of diverse faiths feel valued and supported. What does that mean? It means our places of worship should be safe spaces for everyone within our community. Safe from external attack and also safe from attack within the community from people who are misunderstanding. How do we go about that? How do we create that? That's something to think about, and we need to have guidelines when we set these places up. And considering the welfare and well-being of everyone within the community. Accepting the fact that people are going to be different. Not everybody is going to wear the same clothes or have the same beard length or wear a hijab or not wear a hijab. Should they be excluded from those places because of that? Of course not. How can people connect with Allah if you exclude them? I remember when I started producing my recent Well, it's gone on for quite a while now, but my recent little reflections with imagery. And I posted a picture of a woman without hijab reading the Quran. Most people received it very well. But I did receive a comment from someone that how can he depict a woman reading Quran without wearing a headscarf? How do you think that people are going to come to understand their religion if they do not read it? How backwards is that logic? That you expect people to understand the religion when you don't even give them a chance to read it? This is why we need to be open and respecting of everyone and understanding that everyone is on a different stage on that journey. Respecting that. Two, focusing on common goals. By highlighting shared values such as justice, compassion, and devotion to God, leaders can pursue initiatives that benefit all communities, including humanitarian efforts, education, and environmental stewardship. There's so much in that all of our religions are calling us towards. So let's do good together. As Allah tells us in the Holy Quran, compete in doing good. 3, symbol of endurance. The long sleep of the companions signifies perseverance through difficult times. Interfaith leaders can inspire their communities to endure trials and collaborate to overcome societal divisions. 4, role of youth in faith movements. The story's protagonists are young individuals motivated by conviction and courage. This serves as a reminder for interfaith leaders to empower youth from diverse backgrounds to lead initiatives that promote harmony and understanding. Of course, if you are faced with a lot of hate from outside and even within our communities, it takes courage to confront that. But did the Prophet ﷺ not have courage when he confronted the Quraysh? Did the Prophet not have courage when he confronted the evils of his time? Did Moses, peace be upon him, not have courage when he confronted Pharaoh, who was the leader of the superpower of the day? Where's your courage? Where's your courage to confront even smaller evils within our communities? Smaller but significant. Because when you add them all up together, they threaten the very fabric of society. Where's your courage to speak out? We need to have that courage when we see something that's wrong and we know it's wrong, to speak out against it and not worry that someone else with a bigger beard than us or who is wearing a different outfit is going to contradict us, or that someone from outside of our faith community who may not like Muslims is going to say stuff that we don't like. We need to have the courage to stand our ground and stand up for what we believe in a good way. And what, my brothers and sisters, as Muslims do we believe when it comes to being human beings? Allah tells us in the Holy Quran that He has honored all of the children of Adam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored all of the children of Adam. Who are we to dishonor them? Who are we to dishonor them? Our role, our job is to respect everyone, to uphold the safety of everyone, to appreciate everyone, to be inclusive, to be supportive. It's for us to set that example and not be, oh, well, what about this or what about that? No, we have to be the ones who set the example in how we treat others, in how we treat our neighbors, in how we treat our families even. Some people don't treat their families well. A call to unity. The story of the companions of the cave is a timeless tale that transcends religious boundaries, reminding us that faith and devotion are universal. It urges interfaith leaders to embrace those shared narratives as bridges to understanding, fostering a world where differences are not merely tolerated, but celebrated as sources of strength and enrichment. By focusing on shared values such as loyalty, perseverance, and unity, leaders can inspire their communities to collaborate in building a more harmonious and compassionate world. And if we do that, my brothers and sisters, we will be following in the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he established the constitution of Medina. We will be following in the footsteps of those better years in Moorish Spain, when Muslims and Christians and Jews and others sat together and learned together and worked together and built great communities during La Convivencia period. And we will celebrate and follow in the footsteps of the better years of the Ottoman Empire when they had similar. We can do that, my brothers and sisters. It'll also be following in the footsteps of when the House of Knowledge, House of Wisdom, was established in Baghdad. And people were bringing books from all around the world, and they were translating them and sharing their knowledges, sharing their wisdom. And it established a time of great science and learning, which eventually was spread to Europe. Let's aspire and work towards those things. We can recreate something similar today that may be even better than those periods. But we have to work towards the right things and stand up against what's wrong. I commend those who have on this occasion, and for those who haven't, or those who don't understand the importance of doing so, please reflect upon what I've shared today from this book, from Surah al-Kahf, from the example of the companions of the cave, and what I've shared from the wisdom of the Quran, which is calling us to work together for the good. We should be people, as Allah tells us in the Quran, to call towards what is right and forbid what is wrong. This is what our religion is built upon. Let's live it. Let's live it for the sake of Allah, as best as we can. I know none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, but at least do our best. May Allah help us all to live up to these things and grant us to be under His divine protection and all of our communities within the UK. I wish you all have a very good evening, and wherever you are in the world, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all. If you find these video podcasts useful and informative and interesting, please subscribe to my accounts and like these videos, and to share them with whoever may find them interesting, because the algorithms on these social networks don't always pick up on beneficial content. And if you can subscribe to my Buy Me a Coffee, that would also be greatly appreciated, because that will help me to focus more time on producing great content. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.